if you break your arm, an X-ray gives you this really clean, jagged, white line. It's completely binary, broken or not broken. You look at it, the doctor points to it, and there's a strange comfort in that visibility.
Oh, absolutely. It gives us a clear enemy to fight and a very straightforward protocol to follow.
Right. We like medical issues to be categorized and neatly boxed up, you know. But when you step into the world of human longevity, that X-ray machine is completely useless. The biological landscape is murky, and the traditional advice is often, well, it's contradictory.
Yeah, it's a maze.
So today, we are bringing you a deep dive into an incredible compilation of research we've been analyzing on biohacking brain and body health. And our mission is simple. We are cutting through the noise. We want to extract the highest return on investment practical shifts you can make.
Exactly.
And the best part is that these don't require you to be like a tech billionaire with a private hyperbaric chamber in your basement. We're looking at deeply surprising science-backed shifts in daily habits that yield massive biological results.
Because true longevity is rarely about just stubbornly adding a few extra chronological years to the end of your life while your quality of life deteriorates. The data we've gathered points to something much more fundamental. It's about protecting the underlying systems that keep you sharp, resilient, and energized right now. The overarching theme across all this research is that absolutely everything is connected, starting with the foundational layer of human biology, which is how your body perceives safety and how it achieves rest.
Okay, let's unpack this, because we are not going to throw a bunch of intimidating medical jargon at you. This is about connecting the dots so you have a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about your own machinery. So let's start with rest, specifically sleep preparation.
Right, the foundation.
The clinical literature highlights the 3-2-1 rule. Stop eating 3 hours before bed, stop drinking fluids 2 hours before, and stop looking at screens 1 hour before bed, which, you know, that part is pretty mainstream.
Yeah, most people have heard that one.
But then, the protocols strongly emphasize wearing lab-tested, deep red lens glasses for 2 to 3 hours before sleep. Not those standard yellow or clear computer glasses, but glasses that block 100% of blue and green light.
That is a crucial distinction.
And I'll be honest, I struggle with one of the underlying premises here. The data claims that even if you wear standard blue light blockers, the indoor lighting hitting your exposed skin is still ruining your sleep.
I know, it sounds absurd.
I mean, if standard blue light glasses are like holding an umbrella in a storm, indoor light hitting your exposed skin is like walking through a flood. I just have to push back. How can our skin possibly see a living room lamp?
Well, what's fascinating here is that it sounds like science fiction, but the mechanism is deeply rooted in our evolutionary biology. Your skin actually has specific light receptors called melanopsin.
Wait, melanopsin, isn't that just in our eyes?
Right. We typically associate melanopsin exclusively with our eyes. These are the receptors that detect the blue and green light frequencies of a daytime sky and tell the brain to stay awake. But those exact same receptors are distributed throughout your skin.
So my arm is essentially acting as a solar panel, sending daytime signals to my brain even if my eyes are protected.
That is the biological reality, yeah. You can be wearing clear computer glasses looking at a dim phone screen, but if your skin is exposed to the bright overhead LEDs in your kitchen, your body's central biological clock is still receiving a massive daylight signal.
Oh, wow. So it completely suppresses your melatonin anyway.
Exactly. That signal immediately suppresses the natural production of melatonin. This is why the research strongly advocates for 100% blue and green blocking red lenses. They block the specific 400 to 550 nanometer light frequency.
Okay, that makes sense.
By eliminating that specific curve in your visual field and ideally dimming your environmental light, your body is finally allowed to synthesize melatonin.
There's a fascinating case study in the material from an expert named Andy Mant. He worked with a woman in Australia who has suffered from debilitating insomnia for 30 years.
30 years. Just imagine the toll that takes.
Right. 3 decades of trying literally every medication and sleep hygiene trick. He customized a pair of 100% blue and green blocking red lens glasses for her. By completely eliminating that specific light spectrum before bed, she slept through the night for the first time in 30 years.
A 30-year chronic condition resolved just by manipulating light frequencies. And the downstream effects of finally achieving that deep sleep are profound. It allows for something called glymphatic clearance.
Which is basically brain detox, right?
Exactly. The glymphatic system is essentially the brain's nighttime sanitation crew. During deep sleep, the fluid in your brain actually pulses and washes out the metabolic trash. So, the misfolded proteins and cellular waste that builds up during waking hours.
Mm-hmm.
If you constantly interrupt your circadian rhythm with artificial light, you never get that deep wash. That metabolic trash accumulates, setting the stage for chronic fatigue, brain fog, and long-term neurodegeneration.
But, resetting the brain at night is basically useless if we are constantly redlining our stress during the day. We have to regulate the daytime, too. Which brings us to a protocol we reviewed called the 5 for 5 gaze, paired with a morning question audit.
Yeah, that's a game changer for daytime regulation.
I really appreciate how actionable this is. Can you walk us through the actual mechanics of what staring at a screen does to our nervous system?
For sure. So the protocol was developed by Dr. Melissa Saunders, and it attacks a very modern problem. The action is simply to take 2 minutes, 5 times a day, to step away from your screens and gaze at an object more than 5 feet away.
Just 2 minutes.
Just 2 minutes. The underlying mechanism here is, again, evolutionary. Think about human history. When you stare intently at something very close to your face, you are in a state of narrow visual focus.
Like you're threading a needle or something.
Right? Or biologically, narrow focus signals to your primitive brain that you're either hunting something or you are zeroing in on an immediate life-threatening danger. It physically triggers the sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight response.
So when you stare at an Excel spreadsheet for 4 hours straight, your body physiologically believes there is a tiger sitting on your keyboard.
Exactly. Your nervous system honestly doesn't know the difference between a looming deadline and a looming predator. The physiological cascade is identical.
That is wild.
But when you shift your gaze outward, allowing your peripheral vision to expand to the horizon or just out a window, you break that visual lock. That physical expansion of the eyes instantly signals safety to the brain.
So it acts as a biological brake pedal.
Yes, it shifts your body into a parasympathetic state, which is the calm, rest, and recovery mode.
And Dr. Saunders combined this visual shift with a morning question audit. Instead of waking up, grabbing the phone, and letting the brain default to, what's wrong today or what do I have to fix, you actively ask, how can I find joy today? Or what is working well?
And to be clear, this isn't just toxic positivity. It trains a specific network in your brain called the reticular activating system, or RAS.
Which acts like a bouncer for your brain, filtering the millions of pieces of sensory data you encounter.
Exactly. By asking a positive question, you program the bouncer to look for solutions in safety, rather than hyperfixating on threats. The stakes for Dr. Saunders were literally life or death.
Because she had severe neurological Lyme disease, right?
Yeah, severe stress-induced neurological Lyme disease.
Yeah.
The cognitive decline was so intense she occasionally forgot her own children's names and couldn't navigate a simple 2-mile drive.
Wow.
But by relentlessly applying these microdoses of regulation, just gazing far away and programming her RAS, she healed her nervous system and completely reclaimed her cognitive function.
It proves that you don't need a month-long meditation retreat to heal. Micro moments of signaling safety prevent that chronic sympathetic overdrive that destroys our immune system over time.
And getting out of that overdrive is the only way the body can handle its physical upkeep. Once the body is out of fight or flight, it can finally focus on maintenance and absorbing nutrients.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at the nutrition and cellular cleanup data, specifically a protocol from neuronutrition researcher Max Lugavere. He has a rule that absolutely stopped me in my tracks.
Oh, the mouthwash one.
Yes. He advocates for eating dark leafy greens daily, which, sure, we all know vegetables are good, but he pairs this with a strict mandate to completely stop using antiseptic mouthwash.
Wait, so being aggressively clean with our dental hygiene is actually suffocating our blood vessels?
I know, it feels completely counterintuitive in our ultra-sanitized modern world. But the biochemical pathway is incredibly precise.
How so? Well, dark leafy greens like arugula, kale, and romaine are packed with a compound called inorganic nitrates. On its own, your body can't do much with inorganic nitrates.
Right, it needs a converter.
Exactly. You completely rely on a very specific colony of beneficial bacteria living on your tongue to convert those nitrates into nitrates. When you swallow those nitrates, they enter your bloodstream and act as a powerful vasodilator.
Which means they literally relax and widen your blood vessels.
Right, which naturally lowers your blood pressure and increases blood flow to the brain.
And the antiseptic mouthwash is basically scorched earth warfare. It doesn't just kill the bad breath invaders, it burns down the biological factories we need to survive.
That is the exact mechanism. Antiseptic mouthwash massacres the entire oral microbiome, Observational data confirms that people who regularly use antiseptic mouthwash twice a day see a significant spike in their risk of developing hypertension.
Just from killing tongue bacteria, that's insane.
Yeah, simply because they've destroyed the bacteria necessary for this cardiovascular process. In contrast, preserving this pathway has massive cognitive benefits.
Right. The research cited a major study out of Rush University focused on the mind diet. It showed that eating just one bowl of leafy greens daily and allowing that nitrate pathway to function correlates with having a brain that performs up to 11 years younger than your chronological age.
11 years. It's huge.
11 years of cognitive youth saved by lettuce and throwing away the Listerine. It's wild to think about the downstream consequences of our daily habits. And speaking of keeping the underlying systems young, the research dives deep into cellular cleanup, specifically a biological process called autophagy.
Right, autophagy is critical.
I like to think of autophagy as Marie Kondo for your cells.
Yeah.
The body goes in, finds the damaged, aging cell parts that no longer spark joy, or rather, no longer produce energy efficiently, and it incinerates them. But triggering this process has always come with a massive catch.
Historically, it has been a biological trade-off. To trigger autophagy, you usually have to do intense, prolonged fasting or take specific drugs that inhibit a protein pathway called mTOR.
Let's define mTOR for a second because this is crucial. Think of mTOR as a biological seesaw. On one side, you have growth and building.
Right. When mTOR is activated, your body is building muscle and proliferating cells.
And on the other side of the seesaw, you have cleaning house, which is autophagy. Normally, you can't have both. If you turn off mTOR to clean out the cellular junk, you also stop building muscle. And losing precious muscle mass as we age is a one-way ticket to frailty.
That has always been the longevity paradox. How do we clean the cells without sacrificing the physical robustness that keeps us moving?
Exactly.
Well, the clinical data introduces a fascinating workaround. It's a naturally occurring compound called spermidine. It's found in high concentrations in wheat germ, aged Parmesan cheese, and shiitake mushrooms.
And it acts as a biochemical backdoor, right?
It does. It sparks robust cellular cleanup and mitochondrial renewal. But it does it without fully shutting off the mTOR pathway.
So you get to destroy the aging senescent cells while keeping your muscle mass intact. You get to clean the house without knocking down the walls.
It bypasses the seesaw entirely. The case study of longevity expert Leslie Kenny illustrates just how powerful this is. At age 39, she was diagnosed with 3 major autoimmune conditions, including lupus and rheumatoid arthritis.
And her medical team gave her a life expectancy of 5 years, which is just staggering.
But she aggressively changed her diet to lower systemic inflammation and utilized high doses of spermidine to rejuvenate her immune system at a cellular level. The result was total remission. She naturally conceived a child at age 43.
And didn't she do some biological age testing later on?
She did. At age 60, specialized testing showed her biological age was just 21. Spermidine has actually been shown in clinical literature to inhibit 9 of the 12 recognized hallmarks of biological aging.
Okay, so if spermidine cleans out the cellular engine, we need to ensure we are putting the right fuel into that clean engine. The data points to what researchers call the ultimate cognitive fuel stack, which is megadosing creatine combined with the molecule called NMN.
Yeah, the creatine and NMN stack is incredibly potent.
Now, let me offer an analogy to visualize what this stack is actually doing inside your brain.
Yeah.
If the molecule NAB+ is the actual water or energy source powering the mitochondria in your cells, NMN is the precursor that boosts that fuel supply.
Right.
But having fuel doesn't matter if it can't get to the engine. Creatine acts as the delivery truck, shuttling that energy directly into the brain and muscles during intense mental bursts.
And that is so important because the brain is an absolute energy hog. It uses about 20% of your body's energy despite being a fraction of your weight.
Right, which explains a lot.
Exactly. When you are focusing intensely on a complex task, your brain rapidly depletes its local energy stores, specifically ATP. That's why you get that heavy mid-afternoon cognitive fatigue. Creatine monohydrate, specifically taking 3 to 5 grams daily or doing a loading phase of 20 grams a day for 5 days, ensures that ATP is instantly replenished. It prevents cognitive fatigue.
Yeah.
The delivery trucks just keep rolling.
The clinical outcomes of this are staggering. The research cites that loading 20 grams of creatine for 5 days improved working memory, which is your brain's RAM, its ability to hold and manipulate information in real time. And it improved intelligence test scores by 10 to 20%.
Yeah, biohacker Dave Asprey claims this protocol permanently raised his IQ by 20 points. And longevity investor Baron Dilover reported that older clients taking this stack are watching their spouses, who were previously in severe cognitive decline, suddenly pick up daily crossword puzzles again.
That is
They
amazing.
provide premium cognitive fuel. But if we connect them to the bigger picture, we have to look at the entire system. All of that premium cognitive fuel is completely wasted if you have a massive leak in the tank.
Right.
And according to the psychological and physiological data we reviewed, the biggest leak for human beings is systemic inflammation caused by your social environment.
I always assumed social stress was just a psychological burden, like
Oh, yeah.
something you vent about to a friend. But this research frames it as a physical, physiological hazard.
Completely.
We can take all the supplements in the world, but if our relationships are toxic, our biology literally pays the price. The material introduces the CROP protocol. That stands for investing only in relationships that are consistent, available, responsive, and predictable.
And it introduces a concept for dealing with the toxic ones, too.
Yeah. For the people who bring drama or exclude you, using a strategy called wall tennis with love. You respond kindly when they hit the ball over, but you stop actively serving. You stop initiating the interaction. But I'm curious, what is actually happening under the hood biologically when we experience social exclusion?
This is where psychology and biology physically intersect. Functional MRI scans show that the human brain processes social exclusion using the exact same neural circuitry that it uses to process physical pain.
Seriously, physical pain.
Yes, there is a psychological phenomenon called the cyberball effect. When you experience exclusion, your biology doesn't just feel sad, it registers a literal existential threat to your survival. Because for ancient humans, being separated from the tribe meant death.
Wow.
Your body triggers massive systemic inflammation and dumps stress hormones into your bloodstream.
So a manipulative text message from a hypercritical ex or an undermining coworker is literally inflaming the tissue in your brain.
The chronic, quiet immune system damage caused by toxic relationships is profound. But the reverse is also true, and this is where it gets hopeful. Safe, consistent, CRP-aligned microinteractions physically rewire brain synapses via epigenetics, specifically through a process called histone methylation.
Let's break down histone methylation. If your DNA is a grand piano with all the keys, epigenetics is the pianist deciding which keys to play and which to ignore.
I love that analogy.
Histone methylation involves chemical tags attaching to your DNA, physically altering how tightly the genes are wound up, which dictates whether they are turned on or off.
That is a brilliant way to conceptualize it. When your environment feels safe and predictable, those chemical tags instruct your DNA to express genes associated with resilience, repair, and cognitive clarity.
So it literally changes your genetic expression.
Yes, Dr. Amir Levine, who developed the CRP approach, audited his own life. He cut out his critical dramatic relationships, focused only on boring, stable ones, and found his baseline anxiety evaporated.
He freed up all that neurological energy that was previously being burned by systemic inflammation.
Exactly, and he could use it for creative output instead.
So we've traced this incredible interconnected thread. We've talked about sleep, cellular cleanup, and avoiding social toxins. But for women in midlife, there is a specific, well-intentioned medical intervention that can accidentally undo all the brain detox we talked about at the very beginning of this deep dive.
Right, the hormonal blind spot.
So what does this all mean? The research highlights a critical detail regarding hormone replacement therapy, or HRT. Dr. Felice Gersh points out that the specific route of administration for progesterone changes the entire biochemical outcome. Why is swallowing a prescribed progesterone pill so wildly different from taking it vaginally or rectally as a suppository?
It all comes down to first-pass metabolism. When you swallow a progesterone pill, it has to pass through the digestive tract and be heavily metabolized by the liver before it ever reaches your bloodstream.
Okay.
The liver essentially alters the chemical structure, converting 80 to 90% of that progesterone into secondary compounds. The predominant byproduct is a metabolite called allopregnanolone.
And is allopregnanolone inherently dangerous?
Well, in the tiny natural amounts your body produces, it's actually calming. But the massive unnatural dose created by liver metabolism saturates the brain's GABA receptors in the exact same way that a benzodiazepine does.
Wait, so it acts biochemically just like Valium?
Just like Valium or Xanax. It heavily sedates the brain. But sedation is not sleep. It forces the brain into a drug sleep.
And a drug sleep completely shuts down the glymphatic system. It paralyzes that nighttime sanitation crew we talked about earlier.
It stops the washing process entirely. The metabolic junk, the amyloid plaques that are heavily implicated in dementia and Alzheimer's, they are never washed away. Furthermore, research shows chronic overexposure to allopregnanolone from oral HRT artificially impairs normal memory formation and mimics the exact dementia-inducing pathways seen in animal models given heavy tranquilizers.
But by simply bypassing the liver, by using the exact same medication as a suppository, women are reporting that this intense, unexplainable brain fog they've been living with suddenly lifts.
Because the liver isn't converting the hormone into a tranquilizer, right? They restore their natural sleep architecture.
They get their glymphatic system working again, and they fiercely protect themselves against medication-induced cognitive decline.
It's a tiny shift in delivery, but it has massive, life-altering neurological implications.
Yeah.
It encapsulates the entire philosophy of these protocols. Longevity isn't always about adding a new, expensive, cutting-edge treatment. Often it's about identifying and removing a hidden biological roadblock that is preventing your body from doing what it already knows how to do.
It has been an incredible journey today. Just to recap the sheer interconnectedness of all this, your skin physically registers the light in your living room, which dictates your brain's ability to clean itself. The microscopic bacteria living on your tongue control the blood pressure in your heart. A compound in aged Parmesan cheese acts as a cellular housekeeper, preserving your muscle mass, and your immune system biologically feels the anxiety of a toxic text message, causing literal brain inflammation.
It is stunning how responsive our biology is. It fundamentally changes how we view ourselves. And really, it leaves us with a critical question to mull over. If the indoor lighting on our skin alters our brain chemistry, if our mouth bacteria control our blood pressure, and if our immune system biologically feels a toxic text message. If our immune system feels a toxic text message, where does the human body actually end and the environment begin?
That is the exact thought we want to leave you with. Look around your room right now. Look at the light hitting your skin, consider the food in your kitchen, and think about the relationships you are going to interact with today. Don't just view them as your surroundings. View them as active ingredients currently writing your biological future. Until next time, thanks for joining us Deep Dive.